Key point 1. Intentional predictability is possible by learned effort. A tent was located strategically on the fringes of the circus. It reeked of characteristic incense with a far from agreeable odor. Martin strutted in behind the gypsy, and they both sat at a table with a glass orb at its very center. She then started drawing cards and made predictions of Martin's future. The gypsy did not show signs of being finished with him when he sprang to his feet and briskly walked out the tent door. Martin left the gypsy's tent a sad man, not because of the news, but because he was ignorant of ways to confirm the prediction's integrity. Though circuses, orbs, and gypsies are a laughable thought, it is interesting that a lot of guessing goes into several glorified predictions that govern our daily lives. Many investors purchase company IPOs on unverified forecasts by stock market pundits. When the purchased stock fails to perform as predicted, the investors are more likely to blame it on hard luck. But accurate forecasting becomes crucial for predicting a region's political climate. The accuracy of an average forecasting expert is comparable to a chimpanzee throwing darts. In reality, no one subjects the foresight of prediction experts to scrutiny due to their celebrity status. And when analyzing some of their judgments that falter in retrospect, they duck using the excuse of unforeseen variables. But research by psychology experts reveal predictions of above-average accuracy as possible. Thus, Tetlock and Gardner provide beginners with a guide to accurate forecasting, using simple empirical probability. Key point 2. Now you see me, now you don't. Predictions happen to be a part of our everyday lives, and more so with patterned activities or decisions. However, some of the decisions influenced by such pseudo-subconscious predictions often ripple outwards. And in the long run, it affects other decisions. Scientists have always assumed that accurate predictability comes with an increased knowledge of all variables. You can easily illustrate such great minds' assumption by examining the French mathematician's convictions, Pierre-Simon Laplace. He believed that the ability to determine the position and dynamics of all variables that keep the universe going within a tiny fragment of time would make it possible to project into the future endlessly. However, he labeled such an entity that knows all the present details as demon. Accurate forecasting requires optimistic information gathering while accepting the risk of losing foresight. However, dispelling the possibility of accurately predicting some day-to-day occurrences with the excuse of absolute knowledge being elusive would be the second extreme of folly. Of truth, it may be impossible to accurately chart the Earth's orbit for the next 50 years. The weather forecast for a few days ahead, rush hour traffic on the route you ply for the past 10 years, and the subway ETA for your stop are all relatively predictable, all things being equal. Did you know? Unpredictability and predictability exist together within the complex systems of our bodies, societies, and the universe. Key point 3. Do we know as much as we claim? It is common practice in several knowledge areas to apply the precedent's logic before decision-making. By implication, experts deduce the likely outcome of an event using similar events from the past as calibration. So experts mostly stick to the gun of precedents when there is even a broad spectrum of other possibilities. During the 19th century, physicians only based their diagnosis on similar symptoms observed in previous patients. When a physician notices a strange sign, he takes a due record, with detailed observation of all attending complications. These virgin observations can subsequently diagnose the same or similar ailments. Modern forecasting often resembles outdated 19th century medical practices. The medical obscurity of the 19th century and the lack of scientific details for the prognosis of ailments often led to incorrect treatments and, in some cases, death. Physicians based their diagnosis on similar symptoms observed in previous patients, and when encountering a new symptom, they took detailed records. These observations help diagnose similar future cases. Even today, There are reports of qualified medical personnel confidently following their intuition, only to later discover their error. For instance, a cancer specialist, relying on his experience with similar cases, suggested removing a lump and subsequently informed the patient, who was also a physician, of a grim prognosis. However, the pathology test contradicted his intuition. The patient did not have cancer. This incident underscores the importance of balancing well-trained intuition with skepticism and thorough verification. You can trust a well-trained intuition, but not blindly. It is essential to counterbalance intuition with a series of double checks. In predictions, foresight obtained through theories, assertions, and arguments represents intuition, while double-checking intuitive forecasts should involve experimentation and some form of scientific induction. Did you know? Physicians now know the cure for errors in prognosis: a tablespoon of doubt. This approach, combining intuition with critical analysis, is vital in ensuring accuracy and avoiding potentially grave errors. Key point 4. Putting predictions to the test. The kind of predictions popularly peddled on mainstream media is mostly vague and abstract. You can imagine a stockbroker claiming the bulls will perform well after the COVID-19 pandemic, or a political analyst affirms that Melania Trump will become the first female president of the United States. The appropriate response from a person listening to such predictions should be to inquire of a time frame. To some extent, stating the prevailing conditions during the said period will give more credibility to the forecast. Without those two factors, time frame and prevalent variables, there is no way to tell in retrospect if the predictions came true or not. Failure to follow the recommendation compares to a meteorologist predicting rainfall for the coming year without providing a legend for the forecast. Without a time frame and maybe a declaration of prevalent conditions, the weather forecast comes off as useless. Prediction testing through estimations is vital because of the terrible consequences of elementary errors. If you booked a local flight and the airline predicts the departure time to be noon, a blizzard will affect all flights, not just yours. Some such mild consequences of faltered prediction are amenable. However, the NSA predicts an 80% over 20% safety of a presidential motorcade. Then the 20% vulnerability may turn out to be a grave estimation to overlook. This kind of high-risk probabilities makes it essential to subject predictions to tests and reviews. The language by which experts express possibilities is equally crucial, especially when they are high-risk predictions. In short, it is permissible to use subjective indicators to express a low-risk prediction. When the prediction involves high-risk variables, calculating the probability of the lowest possible error band is expedient. The best way to eliminate errors and concentrate accurate data is aggregation. Merging uninformed opinions has limited value, whereas pooling insights from somewhat informed people can produce significant results. The trick of increasing the accuracy of predictions through aggregation is quite simple. It involves picking the scraps of widely dispersed but useful information. The compounded mass is melted down and concentrated by eliminating the dross of error. Key point 5. Do you qualify as a super forecaster? Julian had never been to a casino all his life. So after concluding his mobile app pitch in Las Vegas, he had 24 hours of free time to kill before getting back to California. The hotel that hosted him in Vegas had a casino, and Julian decided to look around. Being a self-groomed entrepreneur, he went online to learn the basics of all the games casinos have to offer. After an evening of strolling around on the casino floor, Julian settled for a game of roulette. The first roll of the die quadrupled his chips. Second, he claimed a little more win. Julian smiled wryly at himself as he walked out with his winnings, thinking, "I am a super forecaster. About anyone can be a master at a single coin toss." But nailing 90 out of 100 tosses separates the artful masters of probability from the just lucky ones. Julian would probably have realized how much of a rookie he was if he tried the roulette a few more times. This pattern of losing the touch of forecasting after multiple trials or time-lapse is called regression. Each year, 30% of elite super forecasters drop out, but 70% retain their top status. Super forecasters do not always turn out predictions of 100% accuracy. However, research has revealed them as having a slower descent to regression. Put merely, super forecasters have trained their skills over the years to know the error margin of predictions. However, a super forecaster from the rodeo is not likely to perform well on Wall Street. Neither will an expert weather forecaster do any good predicting his terrain's political weather. Mo Busan notes that slow regression is more often seen in activities dominated by skill, while faster regression is more associated with chance. Philip E. Tetlock. Key point 6. Why are super forecasters so good? Yes, we have established that they have brushed up the skill in their specialization areas. It is equally worthy of note that some other people in the same niche of specialty and a similar depth of experience still lack super forecasting abilities. Why that is so may come as an enigma. Most of the super forecasters are brilliant people. A brief chat with Bill Flack, for example, will convince you about his quick wit, but his intelligence quotient, IQ, a determinant of the predictability skills? Research by social scientists like Tetlock has found the answer to be a resounding no. The upper limit of the super forecaster population is indeed smart people, but some attributes set them apart from the day-to-day high IQ fellow. Super forecasters dare to be wrong. When you pose an open-ended question to super forecasters, they are not likely to follow the question's leanings. Instead, they consider every possible option, narrowed down by cutting out the unlikely ones. All these analyses are often done with the awareness of the possibilities of being wrong. For example, ask an average person if the animal in a series of pictures is a female dog. The first thing the average person would do is look for features that validate the animal as a female dog. On the contrary, a super forecaster will equally consider the possibility of the animal being a male dog. Some will even assess the truism of the animal being a dog in the first place. This critical thinking process is called the Fermi estimation, a priceless asset for super forecasters. They utilize an outside and inside view to obtain an estimate, called anchor, to run final analyses on the problem at hand. Another attribute of super forecasters is that they maintain multiple perspectives to problems, even when the proffered solutions are true or false. Keeping multiple perspectives makes them score high on the active open-mindedness AOM scale. By implication, even when the subject of prediction is not their area of specialty, super forecasters are always willing to explore new vistas of knowledge. Another reason why super forecasters are so good at their craft is their affinity for numbers and manipulation. And there is no more incredible time to exploit the prediction potentials of large volumes of data than in the 21st century. The Bill Flacks and Lionel Levine of our times are mathematical experts who chew on a diet of numbers. This ability is ubiquitous among the super forecasters of Wall Street. The ability earns them a moniker, quants. The super forecaster's success might seem linked to their data affinity, suggesting data plays a key role in their accuracy. Key point 7. Benefits of flowing with the tides and rowing occasionally. Super forecasters are adept at perpetually updating their data set, which means that they keep on top of the times with the latest available data, and subsequently adjust their predictions accordingly in light of the new entries. The method of expressing predictions among these super predictors is unique. Rather than just using rounded figures and percentages, they declare forecasts using fine-grained probability scales. Effective forecasters mix old and new data, updating their forecasts regularly in small increments. Super forecasters are prolific at being consistently inconsistent. Their stance in any given situation changes in reflection to the available data concerned with the forecast at hand. They pay close attention to information that could improve their perception. Even in the face of failure, super forecasters prioritize what they can learn from the situation. SpaceX adopts a similar method in the design of their rockets. SpaceX launches test rockets with the awareness of the probability of failure. After a failed test launch, the flight's information is narrowed down and used in improving subsequent tests. Churchill sent Keynes a cable reading, "Am coming around to your point of view." His lordship replied, "Sorry to hear it. Have started to change my mind." Philip E. Tetlock. In light of the preceding, it would be safe to say the following highlights the attributes of an average super forecaster: cautious, humble, non-deterministic, actively open-minded, intelligent and knowledgeable with a need for cognition, reflective, numerate, pragmatic, analytical, probabilistic, thoughtful updaters, good intuitive psychologists, a growth mindset, grit. Conclusion. An interesting fact to discover is that foresight is not a genetically bestowed gift. Learning to practice double entendre during a streak of decision-making is an art that all super forecasters have mastered. This ability all boils down to the mindset of convincing yourself about the vast potential of your knowledge. Super forecasters are often mathematical gurus. However, this is not a criterion for making accurate predictions. A basic understanding of methods to distinguish a 60% and 80% probability is enough. Foresight is more critical now than ever. In this information age, scientists have realized the mutability of what we see as facts. The scientific knowledge models that emphasize certainty are repeatedly being exposed as flawed. Scientists of this age feel more comfortable with the maybe, making accurate predictions attainable. However, beyond the maybes, some level of specificity is essential. Fine-grained estimates yield more reliable outcomes for decision-making. Predictions of 15%, 20%, and 25% are likely to produce more accurate results than one with a 40%, 60%, 80% range. It is undeniable that the psychology of lingering slightly in between the known and unknown affected the course of medical practice in the 19th century. But thanks to rigorous testing, medical experts can admit that no knowledge is absolute in more recent times. You don't come by super forecasters every day. The highlights attributes distinguish our super targets to separate the self-acclaimed from the mastros. Super forecasting fosters better judgment and effective leadership. Try this. You can gun for becoming a super forecaster starting today. Training yourself to become an excellent predictor in your area of specialty will stand you out from the crowd. However, rigorous investment of your attention to intellectually stimulating books like Super Forecasting is expedient.